Hello, welcome to Tea with Molly. Today we have Steve Dorfman. He's the Chief Customer Experience Officer with Driven to Excel. Thank you for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Molly.
Well, I want to start off by asking you about your background. And I know that you haven't always been comfortable when people ask you about your professional background. So can you share why?
So from 1995 to 2006, I was regarded as one of those salespeople, but not just any salesperson, somebody who sold cars. Now they were new, they weren't used, so that, I don't know, maybe gives me a little more credit or brownie points with somebody, but not much. Coming from that background of sales, car sales more specifically, comes with a stigma, of course, because deservedly so, car salespeople have a pretty bad stigma attached to them. And I say deservedly so because my wife and I have shopped recently for cars, and it's pretty bad out there. It turns out I sort of lucked out because I was in a great place that was aligned with my values, but I was still afraid to have to explain all of that, when I started my company in 2006 because of this stigma that's carried with having been a car salesperson. So eventually I embraced it, but it wasn't always that way.
Now, I've known you for many years, and I know that through all of the times that we spent together as friends, as professional colleagues, so many people have said to me how wonderful you were when they knew you in that role. What do you think attributes to that? What do you think attributes to people being able to, many, many years later, continue to say how wonderful you are, that you made the experience of car buying nice and different and unique for them? To the point where, sometimes when they're buying their new cars now, it's very hard because they don't have a Steve.
Well, first, it's nice to hear that. Thank you for that. I guess really there's a number of things, but it mostly comes down to really making an effort to be myself. I mean, I know, as corny as that sounds, I got to shop for a car before I entered the business in 1995. I spent 3 months myself shopping for a car, so I got to see exactly how not to be, because there was
That's right.
a lot of clowns out there that it just wasn't a good experience for me, and I could see that people really were missing that element in the buying experience. I saw this as a real privilege because when you think about your purchases and throughout your life, you've got two big purchases. Most people have two big purchases, a home and a car. I saw that as a pretty cool responsibility as being the person who got to help you with one of your biggest purchases ever. And I took that seriously. So I got to know my product, and I got to know my clients, and I got to know how to ask really thoughtful questions. And not only that, I know, I didn't see it as a job, I saw it as a career. So a lot of salespeople, especially in that industry, but really any industry where their salespeople, have what I call an in it for the minute mentality. Very short-term thinking. It's just like, how can I close this lady? What do I have to say to close her? And even the terminology that's used in the business or in sales is not friendly. It's not customer-centric. I saw it as a way to really help match a product with a person, and I had a vision. At 23 years old, I didn't know that it was called a vision at that time. I was too young and naive to know that's what it was. Looking back, I know now. But my vision was that I would provide such an exceptional, remarkable experience for my clients that not only would they come back to me when they needed their next one, but they'd probably bring me their cousins and their relatives and their neighbors and their kids when they were old enough to start driving, and their spouses. And that's what ended up happening over time. And I was there for 11 years in one spot. And that's what ended up happening over time. So to answer your question, I think it was just providing people with what was missing from that industry. Yeah.
Well, before we move into why and how you decided to go about starting your own business, that ability to support people, provide customer service, give them a wonderful experience, did that come innately within you? Or was that through mentorship and really strong support from your leadership?
Both. It does, and it's the $1 million age-old question that people ask. It's just like asking, aren't some people natural-born salespeople? The same is asked about customer service. Aren't some people just born to serve? And there is some truth to that. Yes, some people are. I mean, you give somebody a behavioral or personality assessment, and you'll see that they might score high in those areas, areas that speak to that. So if you're a compassionate person, if you are someone who enjoys serving others, maybe you have a background in hospitality like I did, and I mean, there's actually a story about that in our success there in the dealership. It wasn't just me. There were a number of us that had come from hotels and restaurants. And so it attributed to this whole sort of culture of hospitality in that particular dealership. Innately, that's me. Yeah, I enjoy doing people's critical thinking for them. I enjoy anticipating their needs. I want to make it a seamless and easy process for them. And it's really rewarding for me when they walk away saying, wow, you thought of everything. That feels good to me. And I know that not everybody is that's not how they're necessarily wired. So for everybody else that maybe isn't born with the innate desire to serve, oftentimes it's just about raising awareness with those folks. So when they say or do something in their organization, I'll give you an example. I met somebody recently at an event, and we were introduced by a third party who knows what I do. And he was talking about bringing me into his company, and they're both in the IT world. And the lady I'm just meeting says to me, "You won't believe what happened last week. We had one of our technicians showed up on a job site, on the client's site, with earbuds in his ears. He's with the client, he's wearing earbuds the whole time." She says, "Do I have to have this in the employee manual? Do I actually have to cover this? Isn't this common sense?" So sometimes it really is just about raising awareness with those frontline folks especially as to what the client is going to perceive when that happens. Because he just didn't think it through. I don't think he meant to show up as somebody who was disconnected, not interested in hearing from you, not wanting to engage with you, the customer. None of that. He just wanted to listen to his music and probably didn't think he was offending anybody.
So tell us more about your work then. I mean, you were in the industry, sales, in the car industry for 11 years. What inspired you? What motivated you? What triggered that idea to take a leap of faith and go out on your own and build a business around? Well, what was it around initially? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so because I had success in sales, I figured I'll train other people how to be great at sales. I was salesman of the year 7 years in a row at that dealership while maintaining a customer satisfaction index in the top 1% nationally. Those two things coexisted, and they really worked hand in hand. So it wasn't about being a great salesperson and not giving great service, and it also wasn't about giving great service and knowing nothing about sales. The two things really went hand in hand, but if I had to pick one that I attribute my success to over the other one, I would say definitely it was about customer service. It was about being thoughtful in creating an experience for my clients. And by the way, that's how I saw it. It was an experience that I was creating for people. So when I started my company in 2006, I started it as a sales trainer. That's what I called myself. And I look back at, the modules that I built and the trainings that I did, and I'm going to see one of my original clients next week, as a matter of fact, and we'll probably talk about this very thing. There was always this common thread of impeccable customer experience being woven through whatever it was I was calling this service that I was providing, this training, the workshops, the consulting that I was doing. Regardless of what the client was hiring me to do, somehow this customer experience stuff kept surfacing. And it was just about bringing intentionality to the customer experience.
So you intentionally then decided to have a look at your business, have a look at all the modules, kind of map out what was coming to the surface, what truly was ultimately your it, right? How was that process for you? Was it an aha, or did you kind of keep an eye out all along of what it was that you were truly offering? Like how many pilot programs did you have to create? How many modules did you have to build? Did you always know, or did it take somebody else to tell you that what you really were doing was, and I'm not talking about consultants, I'm talking about your clients. Did you hear them say, "Hey, this is really good, but this is really more customer service, and I'm liking it"?
Yeah, I don't even know if they ever sort of saw what was going on. They liked what they were getting, and they kept hiring me to do more for them and referring me to other people that they knew. I guess it was just embracing this idea of impeccable customer service, because I resisted it for a while. I really did. I thought, who's going to buy this? You know, there wasn't much research, and still today there's not a ton, but there's enough that proves that customer service can be profitable. So I thought it would be a hard sell. I mean, you know, everybody knows what sales training is, and that it can affect your bottom line, but not everybody buys into or, you know, owns the fact that, you know, creating a remarkable, impeccable, intentional customer experience can actually be profitable.
I asked that question for a number of reasons. We have viewers who are business owners, entrepreneurs, and a lot of them who are just starting off. Like we typically ask them to give themselves permission to evolve, to take the time to go after your dreams, but things get morphed, and sometimes your clients tell you where your strengths are. Sometimes you start to uncover what your gifts are along the way, and it's okay to rebrand or tweak. It's not like you've committed to something and you can't change. So that's why I really wanted to ask you about, like, did you have the intention to stay on course with sales, or how did this whole evolving of where you are now with customer service and truly providing that experience where you leave people feeling wonderful and having raving fans and all that good stuff?
Over the course of many conversations and really just coming to terms with what I was most passionate about myself. So for anybody who's watching and wondering how's this going to evolve for them, I really want to impart something that's, you know, of value to your viewers, and I probably wasn't being completely honest with myself in the beginning. I was probably doing what I thought would bring me clients and make me money, instead of being true to myself and following what I was most passionate about and was really gifted to do innately.
That's very powerful.
So yeah, I if I had it to do over again, I would have done it differently. Surround yourself with people who are going to be really honest with you about what your innate abilities are.
When you touched upon something, you talked about impeccable customer service and that it's very hard to sell at first, and who would really want it, or at least that was your perception, right? Well, you're selling it, and you're doing amazing things for companies, providing them this training, these presentations around helping people feel the experience, truly get an experience that leaves them feeling what?
You know, the great late Maya Angelou said that people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And this is something that I always want to include when I meet with my clients, and we really sort of do a deep dive. And but even on quick engagements that I might have, it's important to talk about this, that it's a feeling that you want to leave people with, because let's face it, this is a very unconscious thing for most people. They're not thinking about this necessarily, but I use restaurants as an example because it's easy and everybody's been out to eat. So you walk into a restaurant, within 10 seconds you've sized that place up. You sense whether you really feel welcome there. You sense whether these people know what they're doing, whether they're welcoming you with open arms, acknowledging you quickly, working well together, have each other's backs, feels clean to you and organized. And there's just so much we take in a very short, probably 10 seconds. We capture all of that, exactly. But most of it's unconscious. So we'll go through an experience, and you know, if we decide to stay, we'll have an experience, and then we'll walk away from that experience and we'll feel something. The restaurants and the restaurant groups that are really intentional about crafting and engineering a customer experience, those are the ones who can consistently deliver something that's remarkable and compel people to actually go to Yelp and write a positive review for them, and compel people to want to not only come back, but tell their neighbor at the party this weekend, you know where we just ate on Thursday night? The place was great, you know? They've cracked the code. I mean, so the two feelings that I think you want to leave people with, regardless of what business you're in, if you want to really focus on having a customer-centric culture, with one, feeling completely taken care of. Every time I say that, right. It's like, whoa, yes. Because I say it a lot, but I still, every time I say it, I feel like, wow, how often does that really happen? It's such a rare thing.
It's rare.
And because it's so rare, it really is something special when you can create that. When a client can leave an interaction, a transaction, an experience, an engagement with you and feel taken care of, oh my gosh, that's like so big because, you know, I ask people, when was the last time you felt that way? As a customer, when was the last time you felt taken care of? So that's one. Number two, as if they've thought of everything. So human beings don't like to have to think critically. We'd like somebody else to do our critical thinking for us. I learned this from Jim Goldstein, one of your previous guests.
Right.
If somebody is thoughtful enough, the way that they engineer a customer experience, that they've anticipated your needs. This goes beyond meeting your needs, responding to your needs. Those are important and those are good. But if you can get to know your customers better than they know themselves and demonstrate that in time that you have with them, they're going to walk away feeling like, wow, they thought of everything. And that's really something special too. So imagine walking away from your next experience as a customer feeling those two things. I felt completely taken care of, one, and wow, they thought of everything.
I rarely hear that, but when I do, you want to check that place out because you rarely hear it. So
this can happen anywhere, by the way. It's so cool. A recent story, just a few days ago, I had some Crocs flip-flops that were starting to fall apart. They're very comfortable shoes, and as much of a hard time as Crocs gets for being ugly, they make a regular flip-flop
Right.
as well, and they're super comfortable. So I'd only had them for a few months, and the fabric straps started to fray a bit, and so something told me, and I don't know why this is one of those unconscious things, but to me they had a remarkable brand, and I just trusted that if I called them, that I'd have a great experience. That's the brand, that's the image they're putting out there, for me anyway. And true to form, or true to my belief, I called their 800 number from their website, which by the way wasn't easy to find. You had to kind of click through a couple things to get to their phone number, which that could have been better, but the experience that ensued more than made up for that. So I get a hold of Susan, and she's just a pistol. She's funny, she's fun. I learned that she just spent the last 15 years in real estate, and the local market sort of dried up. So she said, well, I'll give this thing a try at Crocs and work in their call center for a year and see how it goes. Without questioning anything with the product or warranty, I didn't even know how long the warranty was. I didn't even think about any of that. She just said, you know what? I just sent you an email, but write this down. I'm going to give you my personal email, and I'm going to give you my direct phone number. And all I need you to do is take a picture of the product and send it to me. And tomorrow morning when I come in, because I was supposed to leave a half an hour ago, and it was okay for her to say that because we already had sort of a fun relationship. And I say relationship. We've been on the phone for 7 minutes, you know. But she really made me. So she said, just send me a picture, and we'll send a new pair out to you. And I said, and what about these old ones? What do I do with these? And she says, well, we recommend in cases like this that you donate them to a charity, as long as they're still safe to wear. That you pick a charity you can donate them to. I thought, wow, remarkable. This is a call center. This is somebody who sells shoes mainly. A well-known brand. You know, you can be a 7-figure business, an 8-figure business, or you can be a small mom and pop local business. You can still provide this kind of service. She wasn't using a script. She was following not the letter of the law inside of Crocs culture, but the spirit of it.
That just made me want to ask you a question about personal responsibility as a rep, anywhere you are. Is that mostly trainable? Does a person have to come with a certain spirit to be a truly exceptional customer service representative at whatever their title, whatever their job is?
Richard Branson, is quoted for saying a lot of really cool, great stuff. One of the things that he says is, and I'm paraphrasing, train for skill, hire for attitude.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've heard that.
You can train people how to do the job, but you can't necessarily train them to have a good attitude, right? So hire people with a great attitude. And so there's some high-tech ways to do that. There's some low-tech ways to do that. So, high-tech ways are to use personality and behavioral assessment tools to figure out who is this person really. Because the person that they're showing you in the interview is one thing, right? And the person that they're representing on that resume is one thing. You don't want to be 6 months into a relationship with a new employee only to find out that they're really just not a good culture fit and they don't belong on the front line. A low-tech way is having really thoughtful interview questions. So I'll give you an example of one. Let's say we were hiring for our restaurant, okay? And our restaurant is called the Fireside Garden, okay? I don't know. So okay. The sign outside says Fireside Garden, right? And I'm interviewing you. You come in, you're interested in a job with us, okay? And it doesn't even matter what position you're coming in for. It could be front of the house, back of the house. You could be customer facing or not. It doesn't even matter because you're still going to have an impact on the guest experience, right? My question to you in that interview is, instead of the sign outside Mali saying Fireside Garden, imagine the sign outside said Mali's Place. Now walk me through what the customer experience looks like from the moment they hear about us to the moment they log onto our website, pick up the phone to make a reservation, drive into our parking lot, park their car, walk up the sidewalk through our front door, and then whatever happens from there throughout their entire experience to the moment they walk out of our establishment to their car and drive away. Walk me through what that experience might look like if the name outside was yours. That's great. Low tech, it's just a question. Right. But it makes a big difference psychologically. I mean, immediately I'm like, well, my name is on there. So there's ownership, there's pride, there's like, I want it to be impeccable. I don't want anyone, to ever doubt that I'm going to provide the best experience possible. So however you would answer that for me as the interviewee, it's probably going to be a huge win and you're going to be a culture fit for this place, but not everybody will be. Right. In fact, you're going to discover very quickly what's even in someone's awareness and even be able to gauge their level of customer service aptitude in how they answer the question. Mm-hmm. Now you created something around aptitude. Can you talk a little bit about that? Oh yeah, I created something called the Impeccable Service Aptitude Test, the ISAT. I love it. So it's a 3-minute assessment, a self-assessment. So you can do this for yourself, for your company, and it's just a way to gauge, sort of take the temperature of the current level of service that's being delivered by your firm. So what's this thing about satisfied being passé? Yeah, satisfied is passé. I always say that delighted customers tell others. Satisfied customers tell no one. Mm. So by the noise you just made, I get that you get it. For anybody who doesn't get it just yet, we're inundated with underwhelming experiences every day. We might be satisfied. We might be satisfied with the experience we had when we fueled up and walked into the gas station and bought a candy bar. We might be satisfied with the call that we just made to the online retailer to do an exchange or return. We might be satisfied with, the hotel where we just stayed when we went on vacation this summer. But satisfied is passé. Satisfied doesn't have you talking about your experience. There's nothing there. There's nothing wow about that. There's nothing remarkable. There's nothing memorable. And there's nothing worthy of talking about to anybody else. Satisfied is passé. Did you come up with that? I guess I did. Well, I guess with all the years that you've been doing it, it makes sense to me. I was just thinking about all the times that I have gone out, even with friends, and just left saying, it was okay. And here's the great news in that. If everybody's delivering a level of service that's right here, satisfied, average, you only have to be this much better, right? Now, of course, one could argue, and I'm one of those people that will argue, that you can really be over the top and not spend a lot of money or time or energy in providing over-the-top service. It's just bringing into your staff's awareness and having them own an experience, not just create something that they have to buy into or that you try to get them to buy into, but really make them a part of the conversation and ask questions of them like, what do you think our customers' pet peeves are? Mm-hmm. They know, especially your people on the front line that are customer facing, they know what your customers' pet peeves are, but nobody's talking about that. I want you to go deeper. You mentioned ownership versus buy-in just now.
And it's such a critical piece that I want to go over it again. And for anybody who missed just what you said there, the difference between ownership and buy-in. Can you go a little bit deeper on that?
Buy-in is a way overused buzzword and an inaccurate one. Well, it's accurate if that's really what somebody wants to create, because buy-in means you and I own, what did I call it, Fireside Garden, and we've created this employee manual of how we want everybody to treat our guests here. And so every time we hire somebody, and certainly with our opening staff, they get a copy of this manual, right? And we want to create buy-in. That's one way to go about it, and that's how most organizations go about it. If instead you could make your employees a part of that conversation from the start, and this doesn't mean that you're going to hire 100 people and those are the same 100 people that are going to stay with you forever. This is an ongoing conversation. Correct. I would say customer service isn't an initiative, it's a quest. If we can have these conversations, even fundamentally, what does impeccable customer service look like? Let's define it together. Because if I just say to our staff, that's what we're about, that's what we deliver, and I leave it at that, impeccable customer service, who knows what their life experiences have been up until now, right? So it's going to be based on their own past experiences and where else they've worked, what they've seen, where they've been a customer. That might not be good enough. That might not be a fit for our culture. So let's have a conversation about this. And when your employees can take part in a conversation and you give them that voice, and I find in a lot of organizations I work with, they've never been given a voice until I come in and do a workshop like this, because they're highly interactive. People call them team buildings afterwards. It's not what I claim to do, but that's how the staff feels about it, because they're given a voice and it's interactive. But when they get to be a part of some little nuance in the experience of their customers moving forward, they now own it.
That's perfect.
Because they had a say in it. Ownership trumps buy-in.
How in the heck is impeccable customer service profitable? Why should people care? Why should companies hire someone like you? So what? You come in there and do a powwow, but is it going to make me money?
I can come in and do powwows, but really my where I can help my clients the most is when they bring me in to work on retainer, and I become a fixture in their organization. I get to know their staff. I do one-on-ones with their staff, and I consult with the leadership team, and we develop things together. And then we might do some half-day workshops, some full-day workshops to really get everybody from the organization. And it might be a global organization where they're bringing in people from all over to come together and do this.
And it's not a one-time deal. It's a relationship, right? It's something that over time, it's a mind shift almost, right?
Yeah, it could be for some organizations. And certainly there's a culture aspect to this. I'm actually meeting with a client tomorrow, 60 people in this company. They've got 900 clients, wow. Professional services organization. And they've been seeing a lot of attrition. And it's costing them a lot of money. And they can't quite figure it out, but they know it's something cultural. They know there's something, some employees are disengaged, maybe the majority, I don't know. But as a result, it's just not a good situation. They recently wanted to survey their customers. And so they would have customers saying, "Do you want me to do a survey? I haven't even heard from anybody in your organization for 2.5 years. We were just about to jump ship." Wow. So culturally, there might be some things, and it might even be an owner or a CEO who's in their own way or a bottleneck. I see that sometimes. Or they're not leading in a way that says we're about impeccable customer service here. So if they're not demonstrating that themselves, that's leadership. Having influence over the people that are working for you, a positive influence to provide an exceptional customer experience. If you're sort of undermining that, that's a real problem too. But to answer your question about the profitability piece, back in 2003, there was an article written that for the Harvard Business Review that ended up going viral. It was called "The One Number You Need to Grow Your Business." And it was written by a guy named Fred Reichheld. And he and his team at Bain & Company, a big management consulting firm, had developed a system for measuring customer loyalty. And for the first time ever, somebody was able to create a tool, and so easy. When I tell you what the tool is, you'll be like, "I've seen that before, and that's so easy." Yeah, why not? So, but before he had written this article and it went viral, and then of course publishers were after him to write a book about this concept and this tool, nobody could really connect the dots. Intuitively, a business owner might say, yeah, providing great service makes good sense. We might end up with more repeat customers and more referrals as a result. Might? Yes, absolutely you will. It's just, to me, it just seems like such a no-brainer. But a lot of business owners and C-level execs, they want to see it on a spreadsheet. So this was the first time where somebody could actually connect those dots. And so here's the tool. It's called Net Promoter Score. Okay. And the book was called The Ultimate Question. Right. And so as a customer, you've been asked this question. You'll recognize it when you hear it. Your viewers will recognize it when they hear it. On a scale from 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend our company to a friend or colleague? That's it.
That's it.
On a scale from 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend our company to a friend or colleague? Now, the results of the results that you get in the way that people answer this question is where the real gold is. Anybody who answers that question with a 9 or a 10, they're categorized as promoters. So these are, we have fun names for these people. They're walking billboards and brand champions and raving fans and evangelists, right? All these things that we want to create more of these 9s and 10s. Well, statistically, they discovered that not only are these people going to come back and do business with you, that's a given, they are responsible for 80 to 90% of your referral business. Huge,
huge numbers.
Those are your 9s and 10s. Your 7s and 8s, and this is something that really is kind of an aha for a lot of companies, because they would think, oh yeah, we'd give ourselves an 8, or our clients would give us an 8. That's not so bad, not so good. 7s and 8s are categorized as passive. These people, these 7s and 8s, they won't just leave you for something better. They'll leave you for something different.
Wow.
That's your passives.
They fall under satisfied, right?
They're satisfied.
Yeah, they're satisfied.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then your 0s to 6s are your, what they call detractors. So they're responsible for what they call in the book bad prophets. They've done.
Oh, there they suck.
They'll spread a negative word on the street about you, and doesn't that eventually make its way back into your culture? Doesn't your staff end up hearing like, that's the word on the street about where I work? That doesn't feel good. So that's a big cultural thing. Well, the way the formula works is you take your percentage of promoters and subtract out your percentage of detractors, and you get your net promoter score. If you've never done this before, now you have a baseline, right? And now you can make some tweaks in the customer experience and measure it again in a month or a quarter, or whatever you think makes sense for you. But that's how to measure it, and that's how and why it's profitable, because you create 9s and 10s, those people are going to come back and spend more money with you, and those people, again, statistically responsible for 80 to 90% of your referral business. I'll say one more thing about this. Lots of companies spend lots of money on advertising. And traditionally, advertising is known as a way to bring in new business. Just imagine a business world where we took that same money and invested it in customer experience in order to create more 9s and 10s. Exactly. Wouldn't that be a wiser investment?
Exactly. And to take care of your existing clients, the ones that already are beyond satisfied with you, cultivate them and nurture them, right?
Precisely.
That is such a great reminder, because I think as business owners, we have a tendency to search outward and look for new things all the time, which is a blend, right? To find a balance in that. But we don't necessarily always focus on what we already have.
That new business is often right under your nose, and people just need to know that they need to feel acknowledged. They need to know they're appreciated. They need to know that they're top of mind with you. They need to know that, that example I gave earlier about a client who was asked to do a survey, and they said, what, I haven't heard from anybody in your organization in 2.5 years, now you want me to do a survey? Are you kidding me? Just for a client to know that they're on your radar, they're appreciated, and whether they send you referrals or not, that shouldn't be a prerequisite to have them feel this way. All of your clients should feel taken care of, should feel as if you've thought of everything and feel appreciated. And you did this appreciation luncheons and dinners for the right reasons. You weren't doing it thinking, oh, I'm going to invite 100 people and I'll probably get a bunch of leads from that, right? That would be having an agenda. right? But it's when you don't have an agenda that things start to fall into place and
Well,
manifest.
there you go, talking about feelings again. And it really was. It was a feel good for everyone. It was really a chance to not sell anything and to just really be present and say, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful you chose me. I'm grateful for your trust. And I think gratitude and being able to make people feel, and you taught me this actually many years ago, you reminded me that every single one of us as human beings, we want to feel what?
Smart,
right?
important, and valued.
Exactly. I think we miss that a lot in the business world. And we miss that in our personal lives, but especially in the business world, looking at each other just as human beings.
I just have to say, a lot of people watching this might feel like that's so touchy-feely, so frou-frou. You're missing it. You're missing it if you feel that way, because this is more than ever in our history. This is key. This is important to sustainability in business. You look at the businesses that have gone belly up in a bad economy, and then you look at the businesses who have thrived, not just survived, but thrived in a bad economy and through a bad economy and come out on the other side. Oftentimes it's the ones that are paying attention to these things. Take a look.
Which then leads me to the next thing. I really want you to share with us and our audience what your programs are like. I mean, you kind of ran through them real quickly, but walk me through. Someone hires you, and what options do they have to work with someone like you?
First, like anybody should do with a new client or a new engagement of any sort, I want to go in and make sure that I'm going to be a good fit for them. I mean, I'm able to help probably half the people I speak with and be a good fit for them. For those folks, we'll talk about a program that's tailored and unique to them based on their industry, based on their culture. One of the very first things that I do, well, I'll do a discovery session with the leadership team. We'll spend about 90 minutes together. I'll ask them to answer a series of questions that help me sort of discover what is really beneath the surface, because it's sort of like peeling an onion. When you meet with the leadership team and they say, we want this or we want that, oftentimes you discover there's something beneath that, or they're trying to treat a symptom of a much bigger problem that lies beneath. So if I don't discover it in the discovery session, I'll discover it in the next step, the next phase, which is employee interviews. So as an example, I'm just in the process of interviewing 8 employees of a global company that has 50 people located in the US. And doing that is my way of, because there just aren't enough hours in the day and one person to interview all 50 of their staff, and it would also probably it probably would be too expensive for this particular engagement for them to have me do that. But I can really get a good gauge by interviewing a cross section of employees. So in that discovery session, I'll say to my contact person, I'll say, I want to interview a mix of employees, people who've been here a long time, a short time, people in this department and that department, people who have a high aptitude for customer service and people who don't necessarily have a high aptitude for customer service. Mix it up for me, bring me 8 or 10 people, and I'm going to spend about an hour with each of them, preferably in person, but we could do a video chat or a telephone if we need to. I'm going to start to understand the culture of this company and understand what their needs are. And also, candidly, it's a way for me to show up at that first workshop, not as a stranger,
right,
but as somebody who's already met some of the staff. And believe me, that's those 8 people, those 10 people, they're going and telling people, that guy Steve that's coming in to do this training with us, not such a bad guy,
right.
So there's all kinds of benefits to going about it this way. But the way I engage with my clients is, again, on the premise that a remarkable customer experience isn't an initiative, it's a quest. So really, we're going to spend some time together. I'm not talking about a half-day workshop alone. I can do that, but the real results are seen when I can be there beforehand and be there for support afterwards, support your staff on implementing these ideas that they've generated and now own. So it's more of a retainer model.
How do people engage you after the series, the phase, right? And you've delivered what the contract says. Do you typically, from a customer service experience, do you typically send out surveys? Like, how do you implement your own customer service for your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I've got to practice what I preach, right? So yeah, I mean, I ask the ultimate question. I ask my clients on a scale from 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend me to a friend or a colleague? But that's one of many questions. We do a debrief after an engagement where we sit down and I'll ask questions like, what do you think worked well? What do you think didn't work so well? What surprised you the most about our time together? What's your staff now calling that time we spent together? How are they referring to it, right? What are they calling it? And on a scale from 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend, right? and really, your candor is paramount. Don't feel like you're going to hurt my feelings by answering with anything less than a whatever. Answer candidly, and thankfully and proudly I'm excited to report that just about everybody says 10 or maybe a 9 once in a while, or an 11.
Right, that's
So,
awesome. Moments are great. But what do you do when someone comes back and says, this area were wonderful, but this area, not so great? What do you do with that?
I speak to people all the time, whether they're clients of mine or not, who are using Net Promoter Score in their firm. And I stump people with this one. So they'll say to me, yeah, we have a team of people who follow up with our detractors. So anybody who answers the ultimate question with a 0 to 6, we're calling those people, finding out how we messed up, or apologizing, trying to make it right and all that. And then I'll say, that's great. Are you calling your 9s and 10s? No, we're not. I don't think we are. Jesse, are we calling our 9s and 10s? No, nobody ever says they're calling their 9s and 10s. And I said, there's gold in them there hills, because your 9s and 10s are going to tell you exactly what you're doing right. They're going to tell you why they love you. They're going to tell you what matters to them. But a 9 or a 10 doesn't give you all that, doesn't give you the story. You got to call them and get the story. Because once you discover what it is that you do really well innately as an organization, that might be an unconscious competence for you. That's dangerous. If you're doing something unconsciously but competently, that's not repeatable, that's not duplicatable, that's not trainable. It's completely in your blind spot over here. You got to know what that is so you can do more of that. So that's what to do with feedback.
So we talked a lot about what's in it for your clients and profitability and making sure that they get repeat business. But I want to know what's in it for you. Why do you do this? Why customer service? Like, why does it matter to you so deeply? Because you talked earlier about passion, like you weren't being true to yourself because you weren't really aligning your passion. And now that this is what you're passionate about, I want to know where that passion comes from. When you go and you work with these organizations and you leave them better than they were before you came, what does that do for you?
I feel like a rock star. I really do. It's like, I didn't think I was going to say that just now. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to say that just now. I had all these ways I was going to answer your question. And I was like, no, really, it's just bringing these ideas and really just, I provide food for thought. So I'll provide that food for thought with my clients, because I really want them to do the thinking. I really want them to come up with solutions to these challenges that exist within the client experience. I want them to anticipate the needs of their clients without me having to tell them, this would be really cool if you did this. I'll throw them a bone once in a while and I'll say something like that. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if? But I want to ask thought-provoking questions so that I get their wheels turning. I want them to think of this stuff. And I get so much excitement out of that when they can invent things as teams, as individuals, cross-pollinating. I mean, in these workshops, I tell them, don't get too comfortable in your seat, because we're going to take frequent breaks. And every single time we come back from a break, you're going to sit somewhere else. And you're hemming and hawing. But then they actually get into it. Because in the beginning of the day, everybody goes and sits in their cliques. Of course. But by cross-pollinate, what I mean is people are now sitting with people from other departments. They may have worked with this person for the last 5 years, but knew their name and where they lived, and that was about it. Now they're brainstorming together. Now they're coming up with collaborative ideas that are engineered to enhance the client experience. And now together they're able to create something that neither one of them might have thought of individually, right?
Well, I love how you keep top of mind also from your peers, your colleagues, your existing clients and customers. You send out a daily customer service, like an impeccable quote. And I want to talk about what inspired you to do that and how it's really helped you, not just professionally, but how it's really helped you stay connected.
I want everybody to do this, by the way. I want everybody to find a way to send out some daily nugget. I think there's so much value in that. But here's how it came about. I was at lunch with my cousin. We get together every couple months and brainstorm on business ideas and help each other's businesses that way. And he said, Steve, this monthly newsletter thing you're doing, it's passé. And I said, say more about that. And he says, look, nobody's reading newsletters. Anything below the fold even, forget about it. Nobody's got the kind of attention span. It looks fancy. It looks nice. You've clearly put a lot of thought into it. I just hate for it to go unnoticed. So he said two things. He said, you need something shorter and you need more frequency. So you need something more than once a month, maybe even daily, but it's got to be a little nugget, something that somebody can digest in less than a minute each morning. He told me this 2.5 years ago, and I got so inspired by the idea that I ran right to my computer and I drafted up 180 of these daily tips. They didn't all just pour out of my brain. A lot of them did. It was really one of those, he really inspired me. But a lot of it was going back and looking at blog articles that I'd written and some of the content that I'd written for my forthcoming book. And so I could take an article and distill it into 5 different thoughts, right? And each thought is a sentence or two, right? So now I have, several days worth, of tips. But in that first sitting, I came up with 180 of them. I do this Monday through Friday. So what does that work out to? That's 5 a week, 52 weeks. So what is that? 260 a year, I think, right? So
yeah.
Every
morning.
So
Monday to Friday.
This morning's tip was like number 621 or something. I don't even know. But remaining top of mind with my clients, there's a lot of people who find value in it. There's other people that will unsubscribe, and that's okay. Don't let that get to you. We focus too much on the unsubscribes when we have a list like that. There are plenty of other people who will find value in it, and you'll reach a tipping point where your new subscribers start to outweigh your unsubscribes. And that's a really good tipping point. It feels good when that happens. But a quick story as to how this, I was able to monetize this. I'd given a talk, and there was somebody in attendance that day who signed up for my tips, and he called me 4 months later. And he said, look, I've been getting your tips for 4 months. I've got a company with about 60 employees. We're in your town. I'd like you to do some sort of like two-hour training for us or something. I said, look, let's get together for breakfast. Let's talk about what this is. So of course, it was one of those things where we get together and I start to discover what's really going on and how I could really be of service to their organization. We didn't do a 2-hour talk. We did 3 half-day workshops over the course of 3 months. So they shut down the company for a half day in October, November, and December, and we did 3 different modules, 3 different themed customer service modules for the entire staff.
Well,
but that was as a result of him getting my daily tips.
Right, and the consistency in that, right?
Right, the consistency.
And the fact that you said about the unsubscribe, I mean, you're going to get a few people, because a lot of people are inundated with information, and if it's not a priority for them, you're going to get some unsubscribes. But the people who stay on, they're paying attention. And I'll give you a prime example. I pay attention because just a day or 2 ago, you had a tip that was talking about how, as a connector, which you and I are, how we often don't know that we're appreciated or don't know that we've done something good with our connection. So you talked about making sure that whoever referred you, they get a thank you or they get a better, a shout out or some type of update on what's happened with the relationship. And so because we're talking about customer service, because the number one way, the best way to get business is through referrals, I want you to touch upon that as well. How do we make our connectors or referrers feel special?
Yeah, so as you just alluded to, these are special people, that your connectors, these people that are they're not just your walking billboards and your brand champions and your raving fans. They're actually good at really sort of setting it up for you. They'll make an introductory email, or they'll walk somebody into your firm, right? They'll show up with them. Right? They're not just saying, oh, that place is great or that lady's great, They're doing more than that. Exactly. They're really playing a part in making the connection. So first of all, that's a rare trait, and I really appreciate and acknowledge the people that have that trait, because it's something special, you know. And they're probably wired like you and I in a way that they want to be of service. It's just the way that they're wired. So it's really important to appreciate and acknowledge those people. Now, it's funny, I have to admit something. That tip, as many tips do, came from having a negative experience, not a positive one. So oftentimes in life, this is a life lesson, contrast provides clarity.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we have to experience something we don't like or want to get really clear on what we do like or want. So something happened to me recently where I referred somebody to somebody else. That person made a big purchase, right? I don't ever want anything out of that monetarily. Just remembering that I was the guy that made the connection and acknowledging me for that is enough. Really, truly is enough. I feel good doing it. I don't feel good when I'm not acknowledged for having done it. Right. That's just me. This person failed to acknowledge me. Now, I knew that he probably just forgotten, and later on, he actually said that, like 2 weeks later. He said, "Oh my gosh, thank you for that. Yes, I've been meaning to, and I just got bit," whatever, you know, and that's fine, and I'll still send him business. But it is key to appreciate. And by the way, there's a way to do this. There's a way to appreciate those folks, and it's not necessarily with dollars or gifts. Those things are nice, but they can't feel forced, right, and they can't feel manufactured. So there are clues all around you. If you want to get thoughtful about giving somebody a gift, I have a new client. They're not new. I did an engagement with them last year, and they're just bringing me back to do something more with them. And I was sitting in the director's office, and we just finished a discovery meeting with 3 of her employees on the team. It's a small department, 10 people. So at the end of our meeting, she and I were just sitting there, and I noticed that there was this thing sort of taped to her bookshelf. But it was clearly important to her. It was a quote or something like this that had its space, but it was, and so I made mention of it. She said, "Oh yeah, I've been meaning to frame that for the longest time." Clue, right? So I just made a quick note of where that came from, right? What it said, what it was titled, went online, found the exact thing that she had printed out, right, with her color printer and taped to her shelf. Went to Amazon, ordered a 5-inch by 5-inch frame to fit it. And she was in Europe on a trip. When she came back, that was sitting on her desk. Wow. And she was blown away, of course. But to me, it was like such low-hanging fruit. And I appreciate her for being a client of mine and wanting to bring me back and do more with her. Now she's recommending me to other departments, not because of the gift that I gave her. That's just who she is. And I loved that I was able to find a clue as to how I could appreciate her in some small way to let her know that I was thinking of her. And of course it blew her away, and she left me this amazing voicemail message that I still have because it made me feel good for how she was impacted by that.
Well, in closing of our time together, the feeling that we give people or that we offer to people by caring, by saying the thank you, by acknowledging, by making them feel smart, important, and valued, it's a gift that you're able to give to so many people. And so I want to acknowledge you as well. You've taught me a lot as a friend. You've definitely taught me a lot as a professional. And I know that as you continue to grow your business, you're going to teach so many more individuals inside corporations, the front line, the back office, the lead executives, the same thing. So before we go, I'd love for people to find you. I'd love for them to figure out how to get in touch with you, reach out to you. So let us know. How can we get a hold of you?
driventoexcel.com. Call me up. My phone number's on every page of the site. Email me, whatever you feel comfortable doing. Let's start with a conversation. No cost, no obligation. Let's start with a conversation. And like I said, half the time I'm able to help my people that come to me, and half the time I'm not.
Right.
And everybody should be saying that, by the way. That's the truth. We can't help everybody. But if you're in the half that I can help, let's do it.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. You have been an inspiration for me as well, and I've learned not just as much as you've learned from me, probably more. So thank you for all you do and who you are.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate you being here. And this is actually your second time, but it's the first time you're going to be on TV, and it's just as good, if not better, than the first. So we'll have to come back again and again and again. So
Right.
thank you, Steve. Thank
Thanks,
you so
Molly.
much. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in again on Tea with Molly, and we will certainly see you next time.